Okay, excellent. Well, Cassie, thank you so much for driving all the way to Austin to meet with me. So today is, let's see, what's today? Today is September 26th. And for the record, I'll go ahead and introduce myself for your supervising professor. My name is Autumn Liao Shop, and I'm a licensed specialist in school psychology with the University of Texas Charter School System. And so we're going to be doing some.
Hi.
We have Cassie here. So we're going to be doing some supervision. So Cassie, bring me up to speed on let's start general before we get specific. Let's bring me up to speed on how things have been going with regard specific to what you're doing for the university program.
Okay, so I'm learning to administer the tests
Okay.
properly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the technology end that's hard.
And technology is hard. Do you mean like the software that's associated with scoring the
No, it's
protocol?
the getting it to upload for them, the videos and the stuff to get them to upload for them. Like we videoed a kiddo that was we were testing at home.
Mm-hmm.
We had to video the whole administration and send it in.
And that's tough. Have you tried Google Drive? Are you using Google Drive? Because I highly recommend for larger files. That's way easier. I do a lot of that for my doctoral work. But if Google Drive.
Okay.
I highly recommend.
We'll do it.
Give that a go. And
because it wasn't wanting to upload stuff. Like if I got past 12 minutes, it would kick it back.
Google Drive will give you less trouble. So.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. And so this is the first time that I administered the extended battery and the regular all together for cognitive and achievement.
Excellent. Okay, so let me take a look here. So you did, so this was your first administration of the WJ Cognitive 4, the 4th edition, and then I see, so you've also done an achievement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent. And tell me, before we kind of look specifically at your protocol, kind of give me qualitatively, how do you feel about how the session went with your child client?
It was good, except there's I haven't finished the back section because I wanted a little more input before I did of the achievement.
Okay.
It's part of the extended battery, and so I wasn't 100% confident on that, and I wanted to get some more input before I finished the back section.
Okay, well, I tell you what. So it sounds like you have already have some questions on the achievement, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's take a look at that.
Okay.
Let's kind of look at what you did. Do you mind if I kind of take a look? All right, so one thing I will tell you is I always encourage students to triple check scores, and I do that as well. Always just get in the habit of triple check. So what that means is you're gonna go through and you're just going to count up, go through once, and then just do it again. So basically, just make sure to triple check your numbers.
Okay.
And so let me take a look here. Yeah, that looks good. Specifically, which part did you feel like you had some questions on? Something towards the back, you said?
So not this, but this.
Writing samples.
So I didn't know that I went far enough.
Okay.
With this kiddo, because this was relatively easy.
Okay.
For that kiddo. So that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out. And then back here, let's see. Going test. So I'm gonna start working on these. These are a little bit further back.
You're gonna do some of those. Now, typically, I typically don't give science and social studies. Is that something that you were told you needed to do? Okay.
Oh, well, we'll do the whole battery just so that we can learn it.
Well, perfect. Okay.
But you don't usually do those?
Typically, in a public school setting, in my experience, we typically don't do those. But you know what? It's good to have that. I mean, it is extra data, and so it certainly is. There's nothing wrong with having that additional information. So.
Okay. So this is where I started. This is where I wanted to be sure.
Yeah.
If I need to go back and continue, because I felt like this looks like a weakness, but I stopped because it like the directions allude to that it's just one section.
Right. And so, by any chance, did you happen to bring the scoring manual? If not, I can grab it from my office.
I didn't bring it in.
Okay. No. Oh, and that's not something you probably would have thought to do, but that's okay because I can grab it. But for this particular test here, the writing samples, it's one of those where I have to I have to, and I've been doing it a while, I have to go back and really look at the scoring. I don't have it memorized. And so you will find a lot of times you will administer, and then once you score it, you realize, oh darn, I'm going to have to do a little bit more. And that's really common with this particular subtest, okay?
Okay.
So that's perfectly normal. So it looks like this student did, let me look at your response booklet here. Okay. All right, and this is an 8th grader? Is that an 8th grade student? Okay. All right, so this first page here, it looks like they got full credit. Okay, and you use the scoring manual to do those. Okay, and so yeah, so then based on 13 through 18, so we'll use our little, and I'm sure you looked at the little scoring here. So you'll take, so you got 2, 4, 6, 8, so 12 total points for the 13 through.
And see, I didn't go further.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
This is
yeah.
where I got confused.
Yeah, this gets a little tricky here. Okay. So you're going to administer in groupings, and usually I kind of do a little bracket. So like 13 through 24, you're going to go together.
Group it off.
Yeah. Okay. And so what you'll do is you're going to need to go back with this child, if you can, and give these additional ones here. Okay. So numbers 19 through 24.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, so additionally, and just kind of keep in mind, anytime, a lot of times when you give this particular subtest, a lot of times it's 2 pages worth. If they're real young, it might just be this first page, but typically for the older kiddos, it's typically you're going to give like 2 pages worth. So that's kind of a clue. That's kind of just something to keep in mind. So yeah, you'll want to, is it possible for you to go back and do that part? Yeah, so I would give the second page, and then I would see how the student comes out. And then, let's see, 13 through 24. So what this means here for like, do you understand what this dark shade means?
Not exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about this. So let's say that you gave, let's pretend like you gave, I won't write on this. Let's pretend you gave all of these, 13 through 24. And let's just pretend the student only got 3 total points. Okay, so what that's telling, that's basically telling us that is not, we're gonna have to do something different. Okay, so like I said, go ahead and administer those, these right here. And we'll see.
This area means it's not good.
Yeah, that means that we're not within where we need to be.
Okay. So it links it over here.
Yeah, and so that's real helpful. So essentially what it means is, let's say we got a score of 3. That's basically what, if it's falling here, that means further testing is needed. I guess that's the easiest way I can explain it. Further testing is needed if it falls within these little brackets. Okay, that's probably the easiest way.
So then you would go back to the lower level and test them, you think?
So, well, it's gonna depend on where we are. Let's say, let me give you an example. Sorry, my computer's acting crazy. I'll give you an example. Let's say that we, let's pretend it was a really young child, and we did 1 through 6, okay? And let's pretend we got a total score of 5. You see how it falls within that green? That means that we're going to need to do more, okay? So then we would end up giving this additional part down here.
Oh, okay.
Okay? And then let's pretend, just for learning purposes, that we gave 1 through 12, and the score was, let me look on here. Let's say the score was 14. Can you show me on here where that would be? Okay, so it's not in the green part, so we know we're good.
Okay.
But let's say we gave 1 through 12 and the score was 16. What is this telling us here? We need
more testing.
We need to, so we're going to need to.
So this is higher, right? So I'm needing more testing to determine exactly where higher? Is that what it's asking?
So it's going to end up taking us into the next, so it's kind of like, so if it falls in here, it means that you're not done testing, is what it means.
Gotcha.
Okay?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I need to finish them up and then see where this falls, and then if it falls in the green, then I'm going to go down here.
Exactly, because this may be a real strong rider, and you may end up having to give this other part here too.
Okay.
So just, you're going to have to, and so probably what I'd recommend when you pull the child for testing, you're probably going to want to have that scoring manual, so that way you don't have to do a third visit with them, or
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Just have your manual ready to rumble.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, and then did you have other questions around, was there another one?
I just wanted to make sure I did this one correctly.
Yeah, this one's a little tricky. And it is kind of hard to, because the student is reading, it's really hard to do all these. And so typically what I'll do is I don't touch on everyone as, like for instance, I'll give you an example. Let's say the student said, the largest and most important bee is the queen. Let's say that they had a mispronunciation on that word. So then I would just simply mark this one mispronunciation. Okay, so I'm just going to mark the things I see, not every single item. Okay.
Do you go back and fill it in then, or do you just leave it blank?
I typically,
for the mistakes?
I typically just mark the errors I'm seeing.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I do like to write on here what I'm seeing. Like for instance, if they omit the word largest, I'll write on there. I'll do a strike through.
Okay.
Because that's very helpful information. Or if they add, a lot of times kids will add a word.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go ahead and write real quickly the word that they added.
Okay.
Or if they delete, if they omit one of the, instead of legs, they say leg, then I'll put a cross through the S. So I remember, they didn't, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
So it's okay to write on here. In fact, that's very helpful qualitative information.
Okay, perfect. I put over here like behaviors and stuff. I just didn't know for sure with that one.
And I encourage you that, and that comes with experience, is to jot down notes. This is extremely important, because what you'll find sometimes is that you're testing a student and they're doing real well, they're real focused, and then you get to, a certain subtest and you can kind of tell that they're losing motivation, they're losing focus. And so you'll want to make sure to write that down on your protocol, your behavioral observations, because those come in handy, your notes, because if you see,
change in score.
And then also it's good to go back to those as you're writing your report, to kind of know, that score may have been a little bit lower because by then they were kind of, they were losing focus. So yeah, any of those qualitative notes, I highly encourage you to keep up with those. Or even like when you're starting, very motivated and well focused, very motivated, seems to want to do their best. I mean, just it's okay to take those notes on your protocol. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Anything else on this one?
I think, let me say. So when I'm looking at these, so this kiddo was higher. This is one of the hardest ones.
Okay.
I don't know why, but okay. So this kid started here.
Okay.
For where it recommended.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went here, and so we're jumping into the next.
Into the next bracket, because you're going to keep testing until you hit your ceiling.
So then, which group? When I'm looking at this, which group do I actually look for?
So
last one?
So what I would recommend you do is, let's start here. This is kind of how I do it. So 5 and 6, as you can see, are grouped together, right? Mm-hmm. So we've got 20. So what you'll do, do you have a pencil by any chance? Mm-hmm. If not, I can get one. Okay, so what I typically will do, so for 5 and 6, I'll come here and I'll put a 20. Okay, so you put your 20 there. All right, so then let's look at 7 and 8. What do we got for 7 and 8? So for 7 and 8, 20.
Just backwards.
Okay.
The score.
So go ahead and put your 20 in there. Okay, so we're going to refer back here. So, okay, so it gives us a little guide here. 12 or fewer points. Well, that's not us, right? 13 or more points. That's us. Okay. So we're going to it tells us right here explicitly, administer stories 9 and 10. Mm-hmm. Okay. Did we do that? Oh, good job. You did that. Okay. So then you have your 16, right? So you're going to put that in there. And that's what you need. That's what you need for scoring. And so you ended up not having to do these. So you're going to put your X. You got it. So yeah, well done.
And then when I use this.
So this, let's see. So the highest we got was 9 and 10. So this is a little confusing the way this. So what you can do, does your professor want you to mark on these? Mm-hmm. Oh, they do. Okay. All right. So then we got up to 9 to 10. So this we got this way here. Mm-hmm. And so actually they're off. They did
7 through 10 would be 36.
Mm-hmm. 36. And so they're way, way high. Yeah.
Good grief.
Mm-hmm. And this is a real bright kid, right?
Mhm.
The IQ was, what did you say it was?
131.
131. Okay, so then there's no surprise that they're reading, at a really high level. So,
Okay.
okay.
Okay. So then when I go into these, I can just follow the same.
Mm-hmm.
I was just, when I get to the ones that have this multiple thing, that's what I was trying to
It gets a
figure
little
out was,
confusing, yeah.
Mhm.
It does.
do I use the greatest or the last ones, or do you use all of them? Because you have to plug them in up here.
Okay, so I typically don't use, because this is really for hand scoring only.
Mhm.
Back in the day when we would hand score. And so typically I don't fill those in. Your professor may want you to do it just for
Okay.
practice. I don't know, but
But
I know they for
On
sure would.
average, you don't do that.
Not this part here, because this is specifically when someone is going to hand score, and that's, I would say that's probably pretty rare in
Perfect.
today's world. We don't have time for that.
Okay.
All
That
right.
was my question on this. for
Okay.
sure. And then
Great.
I'll go back and
Okay.
register
Excellent.
this. Perfect. Okay.
So how did you feel about the cognitive?
It was
Your
fun.
first WJ cog. That's
was
pretty
fun.
exciting.
It was fun.
It was fun. Yeah.
Mhm. I didn't really. This I didn't have a hard time with really.
Uh-huh.
It was pretty cut and dry for the most part. I'm just looking to make sure I didn't. Again, this part to me is the hardest part. Just when I
see,
get to
I
this
think that
section.
part is easy. It's
Uh-huh,
funny how
fun.
we all kind of perceive things different. See, I think that's an easy one to do.
Fun. So it's because it's
Uh-huh.
this section that gets
Is
me.
that kind of throws you off there?
Mhm.
Okay, so do you mind if I look at your scores here? Let me kind of see what you did. Okay, so you put your check marks when they got it right. Okay, good. 14, okay, that's good. So there was 4 correct there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
This seemed to be a more frustrating. These particular tasks seem to frustrate the kid that I was with the most.
So these are more oral.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one also is associated with memory, obviously.
Anything written, the kid would flourish, but anything that was
more auditory.
listening and oral.
Yeah,
they
well,
didn't.
that'll be interesting when you run the scores to see if there's any what we refer to as relative weaknesses
Mhm.
in those areas. Okay, so 4. Let's see. 1, 2. Let's see. 2, 3, 4, 5. You know what? I'm gonna double check the score here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm counting 10, but double check me. Why don't you go ahead and double check me?
Mm-hmm.
And that's real common. That's why I always tell students to definitely triple check your scores, because you'll find a number here or there. That's 14.
So I would still stop because we started at 5, correct?
Okay, so we're at 14. So 18 or fewer, you're going to make sure to administer 5 and 6, which you have done. So you're right. You're going to stop. You did that exactly right. So then we'll probably need to update this score on the other page, right? The 14.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, nice. Okay, so. Good. Oh, you're fine. Okay. Did the child like this one? A lot of kids like this visual one. Okay. Let's see, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, that looks good.
I put the letters that they would say.
Okay, yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yep, I do that a lot of times too. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. That looks good. Okay, so overall 18 plus 18, 36. So yeah, off the charts. So this is a visual spatial kind of kid.
Okay.
So my guess would be, with visual spatial kids tend to do well in mathematics. So I'm wondering, how did he do in math?
Really well.
He did good in math. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
16, 17. Okay, that
This
looks
kid's
good.
taking algebra 1, by the way.
And in the 8th grade, oh, good for him. So that he's on that AP track then. Yeah. Okay. 17. And did well. I mean, really did well on all of these. I can see. Okay. What did you think of this test? Concept formation. That one can be a bit tricky to learn. What'd you feel about that one? You remember that one? So that's the one with the with
It was
the circles
interesting.
and the red. You know, is it red?
The kid
Is
was
it...
crossing his eyes at me. He was funny.
So he obviously was easily
I mean,
able
he
to do
did
that.
it fine, but he was just like, "This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen."
Yeah. So that's measuring fluid reasoning right there. Okay. So let me double check your scores. Let's see here. 20, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep. Okay, that's good. Yeah, he did great on that test. Okay, so here's an auditory one. Interestingly enough, he did great. He did a maximum score there. Well, but he maxed out. So let's see here. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Hold on, let me double check the score. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Okay, so yeah, double check the scores here because I'm not, yeah.
So I had 10.
No worries, no worries. That's why I always say just triple check because we all.
What did I do? But it would still be in the same row.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is so weird. Okay.
All right, so let me take a look at here, number pattern matching, and see how that's looking. Number pattern. There it is. Okay. And just out of curiosity, when you scored this, did you use the little scoring tip, the little thing that you can put? It's like a little.
I didn't.
Oh, you did it by hand?
Yeah, I just.
I don't have the patience for that, so I'll use those little inserts that are
I
included.
love that, but I just.
Yeah.
So you like the
yeah, because
overlay.
I don't like tedious.
Awesome.
I like to let's get this going. Let's see. Okay, so what do we have here? So 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47. What did you get? Boom. Good. Excellent. 47. Okay. So how did he do? Oh, interesting.
Weird, huh?
Well, that's interesting. Okay. So this test is associated with processing speed.
This was slower.
Yeah.
Like the
so
kid was working slower.
So this is way different than the other one. So okay, let me go back. I want to see how this child did on
I thought that
this
was odd
one.
too.
Let's check at this. Oh, well, this is interesting. Okay, so let's double check your scores here on letter pattern matching. Okay, so getting a 60. Okay. Oh, interesting. So, okay, so that was just weird because they measure the same thing. They're both measures of processing speed. On one, the student maxed out. The other one didn't do quite as well.
Wonder why.
So yeah, it's this one I notice is getting
the last
towards
one.
the You see how. So that would have been interesting, like if you were to have noticed any, like, seems to be getting a little bit tired, all those kind of observations that you might happen to make a note of it. Because then later, when we see something that looks a little odd, we might be like, oh, well, maybe he's kind of losing steam.
Sense, yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So
Because he kind of got frustrated towards the end. Just
oh
tired.
yeah, see that kind of thing. Seems to be getting frustrated. All those come in handy when you're writing your report, and most importantly when you're interpreting everything.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Let's see how he did on this. This is a weird test. The non-word repetition.
That was hilarious too.
To hear the audio recording say all these crazy words. It's interesting.
Watching his facial expressions was
expeditionary.
It took everything I had not to Google because it was just so funny.
Yeah, the recording sounds funny. Let's see. Okay, so 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. Okay, so good. And he maxed out on that one as well. Okay, so this one is a measure of long-term retrieval, long-term memory. So let's take a look how he did. Oh, did real well. So 2 errors, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 E. Yeah. So this kid has some good memory skills.
Okay.
Yeah, very good memory skills. Very, very good. Maxed out on this. This is a measure of visual spatial thinking. Maxed out on that. This is a measure here of fluid reasoning. Let's see here. 6. Okay, so then hold on. So we have -2. Yeah, that's right. 17 is correct. Good. 17, 18, 19, 20, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. 30. Yep, your scores are good. Excellent. And then this is like I mentioned, are you familiar with what fluid reasoning refers to?
Some.
Kind of. Okay. We call that GF, fluid reasoning. So fluid reasoning is our ability to think through novel tasks that we have not seen before.
Okay.
So like it's kind of like when you presented the child that all the circles, that some were red, some were, he's probably never seen that before. That's very typical fluid reasoning. You've got to be able to figure it out. And
Okay.
so, and then also your fluid reasoning is also whenever you run your report, when it says the GF, that's also your indicator of overall brain integrity. So if you have a real solid GF score, that's highly associated with overall brain integrity. So if you got a kid with let's say 105 GF, oh well, that kid's pretty solid, pretty average kind of, yeah. If you have a student with a GF of 60, well, that's a different story, right?
Okay.
So,
I'm sorry, I'm making notes.
oh yeah, no worries. So, and another example, if you have a student who tends to do kind of poorly on IQ tests, but then you see on their GF, they did pretty darn well, then you know what, this kid is probably, maybe I might give a different IQ measure because overall that GF is solid. So you kind of use that as I want you to think of that kind of like as an anchor. Yeah, it carries a lot of weight. Okay, the GF, just because it is associated with overall brain integrity. So that definitely is a good measure to look at things. This is a smart kiddo, and it's some memory for words, short-term memory, off the scales. So I want to say this is probably I suspect this is a very gifted child. I don't see scores with it like this on the kids that I work with. I don't see scores like this.
A little impressive.
Yeah, so that's
not what you will typically see.
Yeah.
Like, if this were one of my school kids, this is not what I would typically see.
Yeah,
so
me neither.
This is a kid that is in GT classes with my son.
Oh, good.
And so I could get to him easily,
Uh-huh.
and spend time with him because I know his family.
Right.
So then what I'm working on is taking all of this. I plugged it into the WJ4.
So what you'll want to make sure to do is to change the scores, because we had some changes in scores. So you
to
definitely
the 95.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also that there were some of the subtest scores. We made some changes, so you want to make sure to change it up on your scorer as well. And I'm curious how his overall GF came out.
Interesting. I'm gonna change. This was before.
Oh, right. This before, because there were some of those were higher, right? Some of those scores were higher.
So I have to go back in. I'm still learning to use this.
Oh yeah, and that's the program is a little, in my opinion, is a little tricky. It's not like the old one where it was a little easier. This one is a little more tricky.
Yeah. I want to go back to I want to go to the test itself.
Mm-hmm. So you want to go right to your scores, right? Yeah. So there you go.
That was cognitive, wasn't it?
Yes, it was cognitive where we made some updates. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Trying to remember what we changed.
26. 26.
And that's 60 times 3 minutes.
That looks good. You've got your 21. Mm-hmm. 15 and 15. So that looks good.
Okay.
And then this one you'll go straight to the end.
I think this is the one I changed.
Yeah, this is the one where
14, 7 and 8 was 14.
And you'll refer to this one here.
Okay. That's 14. no, I didn't do 9 and 10. Okay. Got it. I'll change that.
Alrighty.
Spatial 18 and 18.
17 and 17, okay. 34E, let's see here. Oh wait, number 9, where's that? There it is. Okay, so yeah, that's correct, good. Test 10, we've got let's see here. Okay, oh, looky there. So that's actually gonna be at 23.
Okay. We have 47.
40. Your 6E, that looks good. 23.
30.
Okay, good. Let's see, number 16, we've got 22, that looks good. 17, 67, yep, that looks good. And then 22, okay. So I can't wait to see how he did. And you may want to just move so that way your professor can see ya.
Oh. Okay, age. Using the one we made.
Using the scoring template that you have created. Good.
Let's see what happens.
Okay, let's see how he did. I'm curious to see how that GF is.
It takes a minute, doesn't it?
Oh, it's okay.
Okay.
All right, let's see how. Okay, so what I recommend is, well, we all have our different styles.
Okay, so this changed all of this.
Yep. So now we're using a 95% confidence interval,
Okay.
which is good. So we've got a GIA, also referred to as the general intellectual ability. So overall 131. Yep, phenomenal.
That's what we would call his IQ score, correct?
Yes. So it's in a very superior range. Let's look at that GF. So GF is high average, 114. Okay. So yeah, it looks like
right here. Is that where you're seeing it?
No, right here is GF.
Fluid reasoning.
Yep. Yep. So 114 says normal. I mean, it's high average. Let me see here. The interesting thing I'm finding is, yep, you pointed exactly what I was seeing. You see how that score is divergent?
Wow.
Isn't that something? By quite a bit, because if you take the 131 and look at the difference between 131 and 101, look at that. That is more than what we call more than 2 standard deviations difference. So to me. But before we say that that's a relative processing deficit, what we want to do, because see, what we're looking at is a GS. We're looking at a cluster, right? So anytime you want to go back to the 2 scores that compose the cluster to see kind of what they were doing. Okay, so let's look at letter pattern matching. That's one of that composes that. Okay. And actually, when I say look at, I'm so sorry. I'm actually talking about on the scoring.
Oh, okay.
Read my mind. No, just kidding. Okay, so letter pattern matching. Okay, so we got 114. So that's good. That's actually really good. Okay. So what brought that child down was actually the second subtest that composed the GS, or the processing speed, which the number pattern matching kind of spun out a little bit. 93. So it's still normal. 93 is still average. But for some reason, so I'm wondering. So on that first portion, he's showing he can do it and do it well. And I'm just curious. I'm wondering if he was just kind of losing some of that steam. And that could be possible. It might not actually be a deficit, relative deficit. It might just be that he's kind of getting a little tired.
So if you were doing this in your class, or not your class, but in
practice,
your campus, yes, would that be a place where? Because I've noticed that people I've worked with, they break the kids. They break.
Oh, lots of breaks.
I typically even break days, you know.
Oh yeah, I typically won't have a student longer than an hour. Yeah. unless they're very, very focused, I typically will just do like hour sessions. But that's just my own preference.
So when you have the protocol and you do that, like it wants you to put the date of testing for the whole protocol. How do you document that?
And it's very common where you do not do all of that testing on a single day. I mean, it's just reality.
So do you get a different protocol?
No, you use the same protocol, but you're going to put the date, you're going to put an additional date here. Okay. And then when you, and so I typically don't have more than 2 dates there. I mean, typically there are times where I could potentially have 3 dates, but it's less common. It's more common for me to have 2 dates here. So I will go ahead and put that additional date that I have tested.
Okay.
And then, when I run the report, I'm going to use the most current, the last date that I used.
Okay.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
That's
it's just
interesting.
how long did you test him? I'm just curious. Because for this kind of kiddo, that's going to take a long time to do it, to test him,
probably
because
at 2 hours, maybe a little more.
He's probably getting tired.
Because he kept going to the very end. Does that make sense? Because he was older and he was.
So the bottom line is you want to become familiar with what each cluster is composed from.
Okay.
So for GS, and I can give you a cheat sheet if you need one. I can create one for you. I have it memorized, but I can create a cheat sheet if you need one. So GS is composed of, like I said, letter pattern matching, and then the other one number pattern matching. And it's actually on the front. It's like the second page in your little easel.
Okay.
It has it on there.
Okay.
It breaks it down by clusters. So it's like a little cheat sheet for you on the test kit. So you always want to go back and look to see how the 2 tests that compose the cluster, how they did.
Because look, it's like, it drops. Does that make sense? Like you see drops in certain places. It makes you wonder if he's tired. This one.
Okay, so 9. Okay, so story recall. Okay, so story recall. So that's
where I told you that kid was struggling because hearing it.
Okay, so story recall, that's associated with long-term retrieval. So let's take a look. Let's look at GLR up at the top. So GLR, you'll see long-term retrieval right there. So how do you do? Overall, you're right. Your hunch was right, because overall 106. Now take that and look at the difference between the overall GIA. So that's quite what we call a divergent. It's very divergent. It's somewhat of a split. So
interesting.
So your hunch was correct.
So what recommendation would you make for a parent if you were giving them a recommendation to help build his recall and stuff?
I actually I have a go-to list of things like for deficits in long-term retrieval. I've got a long page of list of things, like, because unfortunately I don't have all that memorized, but I have my little cheat sheet. So okay, if it's a short-term, if it's a short-term memory issue, I've got some, and they're all evidence-based. They're all research-based, and I'd be happy to share that with you if you like. Yeah, but those are and those are actually produced by the Woodcock group.
Interesting. Look at this one. 91.
Pair cancellation. Interesting. Yeah. So, and then that one is, I believe that's processing speed. I'm pretty sure that's a measure of processing speed. Let me make sure. Let me see. Yeah.
It's the one with the dog and the ball.
Yes, that's processing speed. So you ended up doing the extended version of the processing. Yeah.
And it looked like time. Like this.
I like this one. This one's fun. Yeah.
This one, like it was slow and steady, if that makes sense. But not, he wasn't quick. He really was slow at